Hello, and welcome to Good Friday. Some of us are going to be able to get to a Good Friday service and sit with others as we listen to music, maybe light or extinguish candles, read scriptures. But some of us aren't going to be able to make it to a Good Friday service. And so that's why I wanted to record this meditation so that we could together, no matter where we are, take some time and reflect, take some time and sit with Jesus. It's like going to a wake. It's like showing up at a friend's house when someone has passed. The physical presence that you offer is a way to show that you care. And so it's in that spirit that I'm offering this set of reflections, these paintings to look at, these scriptures to listen to, these hymns so familiar to listen to as well, that we can just spend time sitting with Jesus. Now, I have to admit something as I start out this service. The thought of being witness to the crucifixion has always scared me. I've wondered whether I could sit with such pain and suffering without wanting to run away. Whether I would want to cover up Jesus' nakedness to make him presentable. Whether I would want to shut out his gasping breaths by putting my hands over my ears. Whether I could bear the thought of someone I loved continuing to care about me, even in the midst of his physical pain and agony. To be honest, I've always wondered if I would have been as strong as those women and that one disciple, John, who we know were there in those agonizing hours. Or would I have been missing, like the other disciples we don't hear about? That's why I was drawn to this painting, and I'll put it up here for a minute and talk underneath it. Because here we see the crucifixion happening in the distance. We see the cross being raised. We see the spears of the Roman soldiers. We know that there are some people who are at the foot of that cross. And yet, from our perspective, we're watching it from afar. Were those people afraid? Like I'm afraid I would have been afraid to be there? Would I have been like Peter, saying whatever it took to make sure I kept myself safe? In any story, it's easy, and we kind of expect that we'll take the side of the people who are strong and compassionate and good. But experience tells me that I don't always make that choice. I'm not as good or strong or compassionate as I'd like to be. Which brings me to Jesus. Not only was Jesus strong, good, and compassionate, but Jesus had room for those of us who aren't. I'm sure he wasn't surprised at who showed up at the cross and who was missing. He knew the strengths and weaknesses of each of his disciples. And yet he had words of grace for those who were there and words of grace for those who weren't. See, Jesus knows that I struggle with sitting in pain, and he doesn't judge me for that. Instead, he offers to sit with me when it's difficult to be present to others' suffering. As we move through this Good Friday service, let us ask for God's presence to be with us, so that our hearts may be strong enough to be present to Jesus, to be present to him in his suffering, to know the depths of his love for us, and to be open to hearing what the Spirit might bring during this time. Although we were not able to be physically there when Jesus died, we can be there in spirit to honor, respect, and be with him. Let us not be afraid to draw near to the cross. Let us choose to be with our Lord, our Savior, our friend, today, and let us open our hearts to what the Spirit has for us. We pick up the story of Jesus as he's finishing the Last Supper. John 13:21-30. Now Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of the disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter therefore motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. After he received the piece of bread, Satan entered into him, and Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you are going to do." Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the common purse, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the festival," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the piece of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. And after they had sung a hymn, Jesus and the disciples went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." And Peter said to him, "Even though all become deserters, I will not." And Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this day, this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said vehemently, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all of them said the same. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John, and began to become distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough! The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." Immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." So when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. Then they laid hands on him and arrested him. Very early in the morning, the chief priests, with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole Sanhedrin, made their plans. So they bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. "Are you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate. "You have said so," Jesus replied. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of?" But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ?" Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them shouted, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. They led Jesus up to be crucified, and they compelled a passer-by who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. And then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And after they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, they cast lots to decide what each should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two thieves, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha, you who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests, along with the scribes, were also mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, so that we may see and believe." And those who were crucified with him also taunted him. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "Listen, he is calling for Elijah." And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down." Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion, who stood facing him, saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was God's Son." After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one, because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in a linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there.